Hello again, this is Will Luden, your host with Revolution 2.0, a revolution of the heart, bringing you this week's episode, today's episode. It's about the Ukraine, but the main part of the title is Biden and Chamberlain, Churchill and question mark. Together, we are at episode 389. In our time together today, our Take 10 with Will Luden, we will compare Putin and Hitler, We will compare Putin and Hitler, Biden and Chamberlain, and look for today's Churchill. I normally resist parallels to World War II Germany, but there are too many now to ignore. Russia is following Nazi Germany's path to expanding its territory using the same lame excuses backed by significant military strength. It's September of 1939 when Germany attacked Poland. France and Britain had enough. They declared war on Germany. In May of 1940, Britain made Winston Churchill its prime minister, resisting powerful peasers in his own cabinet. Churchill rallied his nation to stand up to Hitler, to defy Hitler. Eventually, even strongly isolationist America was drawn into the war only by the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Had Britain either negotiated or surrendered, Germany would likely have won World War II. And where do you think we'd be today? We need our own Winston Churchill, or we will lose and lose badly. We need our own Winston Churchill, or we will lose and lose badly. Where is he? Where is she? Where is the leader we need? Putin is following part of Hitler's playbook, play by play. Play one. Go back to the point with me in history when Adolph Hitler started adding tens of millions of people and entire countries to Nazi Germany without firing a shot. Under the guise of uniting all German-speaking people, Hitler added the Rhineland, Austria, and the Sudentland, the German-speaking part of Czechoslovakia. Putin is adding parts of Ukraine under the guise of uniting all Russia-loving people. Same playbook. Point two. Hitler exclaimed long and loudly about how Germany needed to build military strength and increase its size and international prestige to assuage the undeserved embarrassment and humiliation of the Treaty of Versailles. Putin is being equally loud and devious when he claims that Russia needs to avenge the undeserved embarrassment of the breakup of the Soviet Union. Point three. Just as Hitler invaded Poland after creating a false flag attack, Putin created an excuse to invade the rest of Ukraine, the vast bulk of that country's territory and population. Point four. First 3 points were facts. This is a prediction. When Germany invaded Poland, both Britain and France had had enough and declared war. No country will find the courage to find a response that will drive Putin out of sovereign Ukraine. There's no Churchill to swim against the tide and stand against Putin. Sanctions will not deter Putin any more than the Treaty of Versailles post-World War I, the ultimate in sanctions, kept Germany from rearming. Biden will be the modern version of Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, who handed over Czechoslovakia to old Adolf, believing Hitler's lie that Chamberlain could trade Czechoslovakia for peace, land for peace. No other country has the strength to stand up to Russia, even if they could summon the courage to try. If anything is to change, we, the voters, must lead that change. We must force that change. We must take the responsibility. We, the U.S., has the required military strength and other resources to take on Putin and his territorial power and influence ambitions. We lack the desperately needed leadership. Now, if you're enjoying this on YouTube, you'll see some charts. The first map, actually, is a map of Ukraine. In orange in the lower right-hand corner are the Russia-sympathizing parts of Ukraine, which Putin had already just absorbed before his attacks of Wednesday night when he started attacking the rest of the larger part of Ukraine. And then the next chart shows also in orange far western Russia and then a portion of Germany. And those dotted lines, that's the Nord Stream 2 pipeline designed to carry natural gas from Russia into northern Europe. And Russia is a main supplier of resources, including natural gas, to Europe. And Europe is pretty much allowing itself to be held hostage to that. And Italy, for example, is just not going to participate in sanctions because it gets 90% of its gas, its natural gas, from outside its own country. Oh, the benefits of being energy independent. And on Wednesday night, I think it was the foreign minister, not the prime minister. I believe it was the foreign minister of Ukraine who was practically pleading with Russia not to invade. And he switched from Ukrainian to Russian, addressing the Russian people, saying, please don't send your sons to die to conquer a separate sovereign country. And then he added, he said, because he knew that it was very hard for Europe, who needs the Russian gas, to stand up to Russia. And then he said, every unit of natural gas that you get from Russia will be paid for in Ukrainian blood. Dramatic? Yep. Accurate? Also, yes. We lack the desperately needed leadership. And without America leading, the world lacks leadership on any issue of this magnitude. We need leaders who can see clearly what is unfolding, have the political courage to speak out, even if that means going against popular opinion, and finally summon the courage to take action that actually affects change. To take action that actually affects change. We're going to get, here's another quote. Actually, not another quote, forgive me. Here's a different voice. This is the Wall Street Journal. I'm going to quote him. As Vladimir Putin considers how much of Ukraine to conquer, it is worth recalling a moment when a U.S. presidential candidate was ridiculed by his opponent for being right about the Russian autocrat. We're referring to Mitt Romney, the GOP candidate in 2012. In 2012, who said at the time that Russia was America's leading geopolitical foe. Continuing the quote from the Journal, President Obama used the stage of a presidential debate to mock Mr. Romney. Now we're hearing from Barack Obama. Governor Romney, I'm glad that you recognize that Al-Qaeda is a threat because a few months ago you were asked, what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America? You said, Russia. Obama continued. And the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because, you know, the Cold War ended over 20 years ago. Continuing the quote, the media mostly chortled and said how right Mr. Obama was. In April 2012, Joe Biden used a similar attack line in a speech. When we came to office, President Obama reset our relationship with Russia. How comforting. I'm breaking away from the quote. How comforting to know that our relationship with Russia was reset. But just a few months ago, back to Joe Biden, just a few months ago, Governor Romney called, and here again I quote, without question, our number one geopolitical foe is Russia. As my brother would say, go figure. The then vice president said, look, I think it's fair to say when it comes to Russia, based on only what we know he's said so far, Governor Romney is mired in a Cold War mindset. End of the quote. Sadly, very sadly, Romney lost to Obama. And, connected, Biden is now our president, our champion, squaring off against Putin on behalf of America and the world. With Biden in office, we were on the very real danger of returning to the disastrous Cold War, the war we won at great cost after many years in 1991. Leadership, leadership, leadership. Leadership is the indispensable quality that all entities, from families in first world countries, must have in order to survive, to say nothing of thrive. Inspirational leaders from Joan of Arc and Susan B. Anthony to Churchill and Gandhi to Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela have all made the world a far better place. Where are these leaders today? Many people, especially politicians, media personalities, along with Hollywood's and sports figures in the news, hold themselves out to be leaders. Virtually none of them are. There's a story in the Reader's Digest years ago that recounted the experience of a young woman who was applying to a top college. Part of the application included a question to the parents, and the dad filled out this part. And one of the questions was, "Is your daughter a leader?" And he responded, "No, but she's a very good follower." Both the father and daughter received acceptance letters from this top college. The acceptance letter to the dad said, "We'd like to welcome your daughter. We'd like to welcome your daughter to an incoming class of 426 leaders and one follower." Yes, we need followers. And we desperately need leaders. And so many people think they are, and they're not. The U.S. presidency is arguably the toughest and certainly the most consequential job in the world. We need men to match my mountains, a book by Irving Stone about the men who matched the challenge of opening the American West. On occasion, we have seen men who matched the then current challenges and were able to step up to the dreadful tasks demanded of the times. George Washington risked everything he owned, including his life, as a traitor to the British Crown to be part of creating the breakthrough founding documents. He then led the ragtag army that defeated the most powerful military the world has ever seen. Similarly, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Franklin Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan, to list a few, rose to the occasion when crises loomed and steered us through to the other side. Here's another quote. "War is merely the continuation of politics with other means." Karl von Clausewitz, a Prussian general and military strategist. Our president, Joe Biden, is up against the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. And we got little dings and sounds going on. They happen all the time in my office studio here. Our man, Joe Biden, is up against Vladimir Putin, who is a successful operative in the Russian KGB, a cross between our CIA and the Gestapo. The Gestapo, which was Nazi Germany's secret police. Putin was in the KGB for 16 years, rising in the ranks before he began his political career. Putin is tough and focused, more than willing and capable of doing anything to get what he wants for himself and Russia. Joe Biden is a nice guy and is completely overmatched by his opponent, politically and as a military leader. Our man is way out of his depth, much to our peril. In the Budapest Memorandum of 1994, in case you hadn't heard of the Budapest Memorandum of 1994, the U.S. promised to Ukraine, and I'm going to quote, to seek immediate United Nations Security Council to provide assistance to Ukraine in the event of, going back to the quote, in the event of an act of aggression, close quote, against the country. In exchange, listen to this, in exchange, Russia returned in exchange, Ukraine returned all of its 1,800 nuclear weapons, the third largest stockpile in the world, to Russia, the same Russia that is attacking Ukraine today. Now, where are the U.S. promises? And here's a photograph here of the then leaders of the three countries involved, the United States, Russia, and Ukraine, making that promise to Ukraine and extracting those weapons from Ukraine in response for the promise. You're watching or listening to this podcast. China is also watching and listening as well. To the extent that Putin gets away with his aggression in Ukraine, China will know what it can get away with in its goal of absorbing Taiwan. Just as they are completing their takeover of Hong Kong after promising promising to do nothing of the kind. We all have the ability to seek out, work for, and vote for the leaders that America lacks and must have. And speaking of personal responsibility does not stand alone. The two main tenets here at Revolution 2.0 are: one, personal responsibility, take it, teach it, and two, be your brother's keeper. The answer to the age-old question, am I my brother's keeper, is a resounding yes. There is no other answer. So where do you stand? What are you going to do? Remember, it doesn't matter where you stand if you're not going to do anything. And you could take positive action today. Subscribe and encourage others to subscribe with you. And if you're enjoying this on YouTube, hit that little bell and give us a like at the same time. And whatever you do, do it in love. Without love, anything we do, anything I do, anything you do, anything we do is empty. This is Will Luden. We'll talk again soon.
You've been listening to Revolution 2.0. If you've enjoyed this stimulating, passionate, and relentless reasoning, we encourage you to get out there and do something. Follow Will Luden and learn more at revolution2-0.org.